All right. I'm Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's take a look at our agenda for this evening. All right, so as usual, we're going to start with some announcements. We'll go into our recommended reading. The recommended reading tonight is a encore presentation from January. We'll work on the affirmation of the day, then we'll have an opportunity for people to introduce themselves or share their victories and celebrations from the past week. We'll listen to an audiobook excerpt from my book in Chapter 7 on forgiveness, come back for our topic discussion, take a break at about 8:20, come back, work on our assignment, do some Q&A, and then wrap it up by 9 o'clock. Today's workshop is being recorded and will be available on the BeBiggerToday.com website and YouTube channel within the next 48 hours. Please feel free to stop your video and mute your microphone if you do not wish to be seen or heard on the recording. Only a few copies left. Be Bigger Than You Think You Are, author-signed paperback first edition. Save 20% by using the discount code WORKSHOP20 at checkout at BeBiggerToday.com/book. And while you're there, check out my New York City photo book, New York Cityscapes, collaboration between myself and 6 other New York City area photographers. This is the penultimate, kick-ass New York City photo book. What I love about this book is we have 7 different photographers take on the things that make New York City great, the skyline and all the landmarks. Check it out, BeBiggerToday.com/bookstore, on sale for $16.95. And the audiobook for the second edition of Be Bigger Than You Think You Are is still available for pre-order at $9.99. This may be the last week at this price. So it's close to 10 hours long, unabridged. You can get your copy at BeBiggerToday.com/bookstore. This comes with a full money-back guarantee. If you don't love it, just let me know and I'll send you your money back. But I know you're going to love it. And while you're there, check out some hats and t-shirts. You got merch at BeBiggerToday.com/merch. Save 20% with the discount code MERCH20 at checkout. And you can also see some of my original art and photography, landscape, cityscape, abstract images, professionally framed, gallery-wrapped canvas prints for y'all. Here's a little commercial. Peter's photos and abstract designs are uniquely beautiful, one-of-a-kind works of art. These gallery-wrapped canvas prints are set in a contemporary shadow box floating frame and will enhance the beauty of any home or office. Available in 4 different sizes, each piece is professionally framed and comes complete and ready to hang. Frames are available in your choice of black, white, or brown, and each is signed by the artist. Peter's original art and photography will make a great gift for a client, for yourself, or someone you love. Order yours today. And next up we have refrigerator magnets. New York City photos, my original New York City photos on refrigerator magnets. Perfect addition to your home or office kitchen refrigerator. Check them out. BeBiggerToday.com/merch. One of my recent podcasts did an interview with Richard Dugan. Richard has had his own radio show in Santa Barbara, California for 25 years. Great guy. We had a great conversation, about an hour and a half. You can listen to it by going to my website, BeBiggerToday.com. Look for this photo, click on that photo, it will take you to the link for the YouTube version of the podcast. And I am available for one-on-one coaching and or corporate consulting if you're an artist, a writer, a photographer, general creative person, or if you have a company or work for a company and would like me to come in and speak to your sales team, your management team, your human resources department, on how they could be bigger than they think they are, just reach out to me through the website at BeBiggerToday.com. We'll set that up. And finally, I'm accepting donations to continue to offer the workshop at no charge. Suggested donation of $5 per week or $20 per month. You can send your contribution directly to me at paypal.me/Peter Alessandria, all one word. Thank you so much for your support. All right, so the recommended reading for tonight, as I mentioned, this is an encore performance. I actually recommended this book back in January. For some reason, I just felt compelled to share it again with you guys today. Actually, it's a very intense read. I have to be honest with you. If you're a spiritual seeker, if you have any interest in the relationship between God and man, or between man and man, or man and God, this is kind of the definitive book defining that relationship, as far as I can tell. It is a tough read. It's a little dense at times, but I think there's a lot there. So I'm mentioning it again in case you have some inclination to do some more discovery in this area of your life. I'll just read the little blurb here from the publisher. In God Speaks, Meher Baba describes the process of the soul evolving from its original state of unconscious divinity to the final state of conscious divinity. The journey begins with God imagining itself as countless individualized souls, each unaware of its true nature. Each soul then evolves over billions of years through a succession of increasingly higher forms during which consciousness increases. When the soul finally reaches human form, it continues to evolve through reincarnation until it eventually realizes its true identity as God. With this self as God realization, the journey ends and God returns to its original undifferentiated state. The whole process then starts over again and repeats ad infinitum throughout eternity in ever increasingly new and joyous ways. So I've hinted to you guys in the past that I'm going to be writing another book, and our relationship to spirit, to divinity, to God is going to be the subject matter of that book, big part of it. And so, again, I just felt compelled to share this with you guys again. So if it sparks an interest in you, check it out. You can get a copy, obviously, on Amazon, places like that. If you go to the websites listed here, you can get some more information. There's also a bunch of videos on YouTube of Meher Baba. He was... Some consider him the avatar of our age, in the vein of people like Buddha and Muhammad and Jesus and, other great masters. The way he lived his life, I think, is the truest measure. I mean, the book is great, and he's got another book called Discourses, which is great, although, again, it's a little dense. But the way he lived his life, I mean, he lived the way Jesus lived. He served the poor, he served the needy. He was based in India, and he took in lepers, he took in the untouchables. He welcomed all people. He served people around the world with the message of love, pure love, and he lived that. He was a living example of that. So check it out. All right, so moving on to our affirmations of the day. So I came across this a couple weeks ago, and this really touched me. This is from a website. It's a parenting, from what best I can tell, it's a parenting website. It's called BENKE, Benke.com. And these are 55 things you can say to a child. All right, so I just love this. It's going to take a couple of minutes to read, but I have to say I've been saying this to myself because this is what I wish was said to me when I was a child. And I'm going to practice with these with my nieces and nephews. You are helpful. You were right. I know you did your best. I'm grateful for you. You have great ideas. I love being your parent. I believe in you. You are important to me. You make me proud. You are loved. You don't have to be perfect to be amazing. I believe you. You are worth it. Don't be afraid to be yourself. It's good to be curious. It's good to be curious. We all make mistakes. It's okay. I understand you. You can say no. The family would not be the same without you. We can try it your way. I appreciate you. I know you did your best. I forgive you. I'm so glad you're here. That was really brave what you did. I admire you. It's your decision. If you really believe in something, it's important. Don't give up. I could never stop loving you. You can try again tomorrow. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. You are enough. It's okay to be scared. Even if you make a mistake, you can fix it. Being kind does not make you weak. Your ideas are great. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing. Anything is possible. You can make a difference. I love how you said that. I'm listening. You did that so well. You make my heart full. Not everyone will like you, and that's okay. You have a choice. That's a great question. I'm so excited to spend time with you. That was a really good choice. I trust you. I hear you. Your attitude can change any situation. You're a great friend. Never stop trying. I will always love you. So I love this. I've been saying it to my inner child, little Peter. Been saying it to him. And these are many of the things I wish I heard when I was a kid. And you know what? Now I can say them to myself. And I can say them to other kids, other people's kids. And so it's a beautiful thing to be mindful of the impact that our words have. And remember, our words are an expression of who we think we are. They're an expression of how we see ourselves. So to say to a child, you make my heart full. I love saying to my nieces and nephews, I say, I feel so happy whenever I see you. And I don't say you make me so happy. I say I feel so happy whenever I see you. So little things like this. So I wanted to share this with you guys. I'm going to put it on screen one more time. As I said, you can get a copy of it at benkey.com, or I can send you a copy if you want. Really, really something nice to do for ourselves or for the kids in our lives. So this is the portion of the workshop where we have an opportunity for people to introduce themselves or share their victories and celebrations from the past week. So is there anybody who would like to say hello or share a victory?
Hi, Peter. Hi, everybody. It's Dee Dee. I'll share.
Go, Dee Dee.
Well, so I love being here, and I love pinging my cohorts and saying, okay, see you in an hour. See you at BBT in an hour. I think that being part of a rigorous self-reflection program is a victory. And I think coming this far at this level is also a victory. And I was going to ask you a question. Oh, I know. Tell me why or what you think the biggest difference between your revised paperback and the first edition. Let me know why you think that first edition is going to be a collector's item so we can help you move those out off the shelf. Glad to see everybody.
Thanks, Dee Dee. Well, yeah, I agree. I think anybody who stuck it out this long with the workshop, I think I really appreciate that, and I think it takes some courage to look at some of this stuff, because I don't know what anybody else is doing, but I'm just grateful that you guys are here to share this with me. In terms of the second edition, it's about, I would say, I haven't measured it exactly, but it's about 25% either new or revised material in there. I've added things like another forgiveness process to Chapter 7. I've added the sample affirmations. I've added a family contract, a sample family contract between parents and teenagers. I've just refined a lot of it. I've expanded it. It's about 30 more pages, although I cut about 2,500 words out of the first edition, but I added maybe not 30 pages, maybe about 20 pages. And the reason I think the first edition is going to be, I don't know, obviously I can't say definitely one way or the other, but I think it will be, there's only a couple hundred of them out there, and so in that sense alone, I think the scarcity will make them, because I'm not printing any more of those, and they're not going to be available after a couple of weeks from now. And I know when the second edition catches on, it's going to catch on really big. So you guys are ahead of the curve on that one. So Dee Dee, I hope that answers your question. Anybody else want to say hi or share a victory from the last week? All right. So let's get back into our program then. So again, we're on Chapter 7. It's the second night. I think we're going to have about 4, maybe 5 more weeks on this chapter, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. We'll have, I guess, one big review, and then we'll be done for this go-round. So we're going to listen to the audiobook excerpt now, and then when we come back, we'll do some discussion and go from there.
Forgiveness is something we do for ourselves. I think the first major obstacle to forgiveness for many people is that it seems to be something we're doing for someone else. The idea is we're letting another person or nation off the hook scot-free, and that the other person or nation doesn't have to be accountable for their part in things. As we'll find out shortly, we can forgive and still hold others accountable. But the bigger point, and what most people don't get, is that forgiveness is something we do for ourselves. It's actually good for us. It's only by letting go of the past that we can move into the future. We can't change what happened, but we can change how we see ourselves and the other people involved, and that's the key to true forgiveness. Holding on to old wounds usually means repeating the patterns of thinking and feeling that created those wounds in the first place. Forgiveness is about rewriting the story of what other people and/or the circumstances and conditions of life did to us. This doesn't mean condoning someone else's unloving behavior. It also doesn't mean blaming ourselves for what happened or denying the pain we felt, especially as kids. But it does mean we make a new choice about how we see ourselves in the present by letting go of the past. In this regard, forgiveness is synonymous with healing. In terms of a direct benefit to us, letting go of resentment frees us from the negative consequences of hating someone. Being preoccupied with what another person did to us reinforces our victim mentality and can easily distract us from more productive thinking. Most of us have no idea how much energy we consume on a daily basis being angry or annoyed with other people. Ruminating over someone else's bad behavior does nothing to them, but it can easily ruin our day. We may or may not choose to stay in relationship with someone who harms us. But either way, letting go of our anger towards them frees up energy that can be put to more productive use in our lives. Finally, there's also mounting evidence that persistent negative emotions like anger, hatred, and resentment can adversely affect our health. Thus, it's quite possible we're actually harming ourselves by hating other people. At the next level, if, instead of forgiving, we act on our negative emotions, such as by seeking retaliation or revenge, this almost always makes things worse. While I'm sure some people feel differently, in my own life, revenge tends to escalate the conflict rather than resolve it. We said in the last chapter, everyone thinks their perspective is the correct one. Thus, whatever the other person did that may have harmed us, they did because they thought it was the right thing for them to do. So when we seek revenge, instead of them rolling over and agreeing to our point of view, now they feel attacked, and in their mind, further retaliation is warranted. At a certain point, it doesn't matter who started it. Both will claim the other did anyway. As each side feels justified in seeking retaliation and revenge, the conflict escalates and both sides end up losing. To the ego, forgiveness feels like we're giving up. Yet, as my story with my neighbor shows, we have the potential to gain a lot more than we lose when we extend forgiveness. In many cases, what we're gaining is peace. This is no small thing. As long as we deal with conflict by using force, especially when that force is driven by anger, there can be no peace. We'll live in constant fear of retaliation from the other side. The fact that we may have more or bigger weapons does not promise an end to conflict. At best, it buys time between attacks. Yet, until we truly forgive, there will always be the possibility of more strife. The ego will see to it. As I alluded to at the end of the last chapter, one of the biggest benefits to us from forgiveness is that when we truly forgive, we change how we see ourselves. We stop giving our power away and no longer identify as victims. Yes, we use common sense and take reasonable precautions when dealing with others. Yet as we practice forgiveness, more and more, who we think we are is someone who can't be hurt by others. This is a pretty radical shift in thinking for most people. The first step towards forgiveness and thus lasting peace is the understanding that all people, including those we consider enemies, do what they do because they think it's the right thing to do. We're all primarily motivated by self-preservation, i.e. survival, and/or the pursuit of happiness. This jives with what we said in Chapter 5. All our choices and decisions are based on what we think will make us feel better. Nothing feels better than surviving and/or being happy. Yet, when our ego is in charge, these instinctual drives for survival and happiness seeking can become tainted. Instead of being positive forces, our attention is tuned to potential threats to our property, our physical well-being, and/or our way of life. When we perceive any of these to be at risk, our ego kicks into high gear and we assume the worst. For example, we may interpret another person's acts of self-preservation as acts of aggression and initiate a conflict against them. Likewise, someone else may see our choices as a threat to their own happiness or way of life and seek retaliation. In either case, as we've seen over and over again, without a proper understanding of what's really happening, this can lead to people attacking first and asking questions later. The challenge/opportunity in these situations is to step into the shoes of our opponents and see the world the way they do. Later in this chapter, I'll mention a couple of specific techniques we can use to achieve this. For now, note that it's really important to recognize we all share these common motivations of survival and/or happiness seeking. When we remember this, while we may not agree with what the other person is doing, we can at least understand why they're doing it. This can lead to empathy rather than enmity for their choices. We may even attempt to assist them in reaching their goals in a way that doesn't harm us, since the more secure they feel in this regard, the better it is for both of us. Know thy neighbor as thyself. In the last chapter, we said the better we know other people, the harder it is to hate them. In this chapter, we said fostering conflict with others by retaliation or revenge often comes back to haunt us. Thus, whether in our own neighborhoods or on the world stage, it's probably a good idea to get to know anyone whose actions may unfavorably affect us, especially if we consider those people potential adversaries. We can actually get to know other people so well and have such clear lines of communication with them that we can diffuse potential problems before they happen. But again, this is very difficult to do when we're locked into our egoic thinking. The ego is paranoid. It's always on the lookout for enemies. It's also egocentric. It takes everything personally. It prefers attack to peace and rarely gives other people the benefit of the doubt, especially when we feel vulnerable or threatened. This is why we can't love a little and attack a little. This will never work if we want lasting peace. As I mentioned a moment ago, forgiveness is not about letting the bad guys off the hook. We're not releasing someone from the consequences of their actions. We also don't have to give up our right to defend ourselves. It's okay to use force if necessary to protect our interests. Yet force must be a last resort. Diplomacy, dialogue, and a commitment to peace must come first. Actually, what must come first is seeing ourselves differently. When we see ourselves differently, we'll see others differently. When we stop seeing others as a threat and start seeing them as people who are doing what they think they need to do to survive, we'll finally have a chance at real peace. I firmly believe it's possible to replace violence with compassion and understanding when it comes to resolving our conflicts. In fact, we can love other people or nations so much that it would never occur to that other person or nation to attack us over our differences. When we learn how to do this, everything will change. I've often thought about what would happen if we, as a species, were confronted with a threat from outside our solar system. Imagine this alien force was significantly more advanced, and it was clear it would take everyone on Earth working together to overcome this adversary. Do you think as individual human beings or as nations we'd have any problem putting our differences aside to get this done? If the future of the planet were at stake, would we care about what some other person or country did to us last week, last month, or last century? Of course not. The only thing that's stopping us from coming together like that right now is our ego. Obviously, I hope it never comes down to something like an alien threat to bring the nations of the earth together. But maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing.
All right, so that's the audiobook for tonight, and I'm going to jump into our discussion now. So, again, we're talking about forgiveness. This is tough stuff. It's tough for me. Maybe it's easy for you guys, but there's all kinds of obstacles that my ego puts in the way of me forgiving. And it's confusing for me, too, because I don't know. I'm still learning, and I'm well into my adult years. I'm still learning how to take care of myself without anger, without making other people wrong, without attacking other people. And finding healthy ways to cohabitate, to coexist with people, whether in my family, in my business, my living situation, whatever it may be. So this is, this remains a challenge for me, and I can see it as a challenge for many people. But hopefully, this discussion over the next few weeks will open our mind to some new possibilities, and then we'll see if we can step through that door to doing things differently. How to resolve conflict without anger, how to take care of ourselves without attack, how to let go of things like judgment, criticism, making others wrong, making ourselves wrong. Because here's the thing, guys, if you read A Course in Miracles and other spiritual texts, they'll tell you, as we see another, we see ourselves. As we do to another, we do to ourselves. So if I'm judging everybody, if I'm making everybody wrong, if I'm attacking people for whatever, ultimately that exhibits a lack of peace in my own mind, and a lack of love for myself. The other morning, it just kind of popped into my head. I thought, if you want to know who you are, look at how you are. Actually, who and how are the same word, just move the letters around. And so if you want to know who you are, look at how you are. How are you being in this moment? How am I being in this moment? Am I being loving? Am I being forgiving? Am I being accepting? Am I being encouraging of myself and others? Am I saying nice things to the kids in my life? Or am I criticizing them? Am I shaming them? Am I making them wrong? Am I blaming them for how I feel? I think that's the worst thing that I can do to a child, or that we as adults can do to children, especially young children, is blame them for how we feel. Because kids don't know any better, and they think, they take that literally, and it feels bad because it's not true. Anyway, so just focusing on our discussion of forgiveness. So let's look at the first slide for tonight. So forgiveness is something we do for ourselves. So this is a key concept. I had never heard this before. This kind of came out while I was writing the book. This idea that, we're not really forgiving the other person for them. We're forgiving the other person for us. It's something that we're doing for ourselves. It turns out that forgiveness is good for us. And as I mentioned in the audiobook tonight, It's not about letting other people off the hook scot-free. There are still consequences for their actions. They're still accountable for any harm that they've caused. And when we forgive, we're freeing ourselves. It's a gift that we give to ourselves. So some of the things that happen by releasing negative thinking, it allows us to heal old wounds and mend relationships. And I noticed that for me, if I'm still thinking about what happened to me when I was 5 years old, or when I was 15 years old, or when I was 40 years old, at the hands of another person, I'm not allowing that wound to heal. It's like picking at a scab. It never actually heals because I'm constantly going back there and telling the same story about how I was hurt, how I'm a victim, how it was not fair. Now again, this is not to say that the other people in our lives have not done harmful things to us. All right? I'm not for a moment discounting anybody's experience where they've been harmed or abused or neglected or whatever by another person. But if that happened 4 years ago or 40 years ago, and I'm still ruminating over that, if I'm still giving that my mental attention, if that's still part of the story of who I think I am, then I'm hurting myself. I'm harming myself. And it's important. I think it's difficult to understand that. It's even more difficult to actually put that into practice. But here's the thing, we don't have to go back and tell those same stories, whether to ourselves or to another person, about what they did to us, about how unfair it was, about how inappropriate it was. Even if it was unfair and even if it was inappropriate, we don't have to tell that story in a way that continues to re-injure us. Complaining, regurgitating the past in a negative way hurts us. It's harmful to us. It reopens that wound. And that becomes part of our identity, part of who we think we are. Even if it wasn't, 40 years ago, so letting go of our anger frees up energy that we can put to more productive use in our lives. Most people, in my opinion, in my experience, have no idea how much energy they spend all day being annoyed or angry with other people, or with the circumstances of their lives, or the situations they're confronted with in life. We can give so much mental energy and attention to the negative stuff that it takes away from our ability to actually be productive, to reach our goals, to move forward with our lives. I got to tell you guys, I see this even today in myself. There are some days I would just rather be mad about what somebody's doing or not doing in my life today than focus on getting, the second edition of the book done, or the audiobook, or whatever my goal is, whatever I need to do to move my life forward. I can't do both. I can't spend time thinking about how somebody else has done me wrong and being resentful and angry at them, and also focus on my life, focus on my goals, move my life forward. It's, in my experience, maybe it's different for you guys, in my experience, it's mutually exclusive. Whatever I'm giving energy to is taking away from the other areas of my life. So if I'm focused on what they did to me, whether, again, 40 years ago or last night, that's going to distract me. If I'm devoting my mental energy and attention to being annoyed, to being angry at somebody else, or something else, or again, the conditions and circumstances of my life, I'm not focused on moving my life forward. So it's been really important for me to notice that the energy that I spend being angry or annoyed is at other people or situations is actually energy that I could use to move my life forward. And again, as I said in the audiobook tonight, ruminating on somebody else's bad behavior does nothing to them, but it can easily ruin my day. Now, again, we can take care of ourselves, we can hold other people accountable, we can do what we need to do to take care of ourselves, But we don't have to be mired in resentment and anger and self-pity and feeling victimized by life to do those things. And that's one of the biggest lessons for me, even today, is to understand that I don't have to be a victim or feel like a victim or feel sorry for myself or be resentful of other people to take care of myself. That was actually never an effective strategy. There's also evidence now that things like, high blood pressure, heart attacks, stroke, it's all related to negative emotional states. In particular, anger, annoyance, hostility, resentment. All of that stuff manifests in our bodies physically. So when we do forgiveness and we begin to let go of all that stuff, we're actually helping ourselves to be more healthy. It's good for us physically to forgive, to let go of that anger, that resentment, that feeling of victimization. And then finally, or not finally, but lastly on this list, we can avoid attack and retaliation by others because, again, we don't have to go very far in the news to see where attack leads to retaliation, leads to revenge, and everybody ends up losing. So if instead of retaliating or attacking or seeking revenge, I find a way to find forgiveness while still taking care of myself, it doesn't foster, remember, anger begets anger, defensiveness begets defensiveness, attack begets attack. So, we may have to at some point say, it doesn't matter what they're doing, we're not going to attack back, at least not in that way, with physical violence and all of that. So forgiveness avoids the need for physical violence in some cases. So these are some of the reasons why forgiveness is good for us. But I think for me, the most important reason why forgiveness is good for us, the biggest benefit to us of forgiving others, is that when we truly forgive, we change how we see ourselves. Now, I've been saying from day one, and it's in the first chapter of my book, how we see ourselves determines everything. So when I change how I see myself, when I no longer see myself as a victim, when I no longer see myself as unfairly treated by the world or other people, when I no longer see myself as feeling sorry for myself, self-pity, as weak, as threatened, as vulnerable, I stop giving my power away. And when I stop giving my power away, I can begin to have a different experience of life. So when we truly forgive, and we're going to talk more about this in the next couple of weeks, it actually changes who we think we are, how we see ourselves. And again, as I've been saying from the beginning, if we want our lives to change, we have to change who we think we are, how we see ourselves in all the events and situations in our lives that challenge us. So forgiveness plays a really important role in that. So this is going to be a recurring theme over the next few weeks as we move more into forgiveness. It's this idea that all people, including those that we would consider enemies, are doing what they're doing because they think it's the right thing for them to do. We're all primarily motivated by self-preservation, i.e. survival, and/or the pursuit of happiness. We all share this. Now, the thing that gets in the way is that what happens is our ego comes up and says, well, no, what they're doing is about me. The ego takes everything personally. We make what other people do, which is really about them, about us. Now, it's not to say that other people's actions and activities don't have an effect on us. I'm not denying that. But it's not about us. It's about them. And it's not personal, even if it's meant to be personal. If somebody needs to attack me so they can feel better, so they can feel safe, so they can feel okay, they got issues. Because when I attack other people so I can feel better, so I can feel safe, so I can feel okay, I recognize I got issues. Healthy, functional people don't need to attack each other to resolve their differences. So it doesn't make it right, but it does give us a way in to begin to say, okay, at least I don't have to take this personally. At least I don't have to make what they're doing about me. Rather, I can let it be about them, an expression of, remember, if you want to know who you are, look at how you are. So how are they being in this moment? They're being defensive, they're being aggressive, they're being violent. Well, you know what? That's who they think they are. And that's about them. We can still take care of ourselves. We can still do whatever we need to do to take care of ourselves. And next week, we're going to start talking about boundaries, what boundaries are, what healthy boundaries are, how to use them. But we have to even have a way in, we have to begin to disengage from the thinking of the ego, which says, they're doing this to me, it's personal, and I'm entitled to retaliate, to attack. There's no room in there for compassion or understanding or whatever. If somebody who's attacking me, if I can stop and say, wow, they're just doing what they think they need to do in this situation to survive, to take care of themselves, and they don't know any other way to do that, and then I can say, wow, when am I like that? How am I like that? When have I done that in my own life? Now all of a sudden, there's at least a little bit of room for understanding or compassion. And that can change everything. That can totally disarm the other person, literally, figuratively, and literally, depending on the situation. If we don't respond in kind, if we don't respond with defensiveness, with anger, with violence, that begins to open the door. But we can't do that as long as the ego is saying, this is personal, they're attacking you, you have the right to retaliate, and all of that. So I want to begin by pointing out that we have this, we all share this underlying desire, need, whatever you want to call it, for self-preservation, to do what we think we need to do to survive and or to be happy. And when I can recognize that, again, Course in Miracles, I'm a big fan of that book. Course in Miracles says all attack is a call for help. When somebody's attacking us, they're really calling out for our help. Now that's a pretty high spiritual concept. And again, we want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in harm's way, that we're taking care of ourselves. But, the alternative is, how we're living. And I got news for you guys, it ain't working. I mean, look at what's going on in the world. Look at what's going on in your own family. For many of us, the status quo is not working. It's not serving us and will not solve this problem. So I'm suggesting that we have to find another way in to begin to unravel this a little bit and deal with the situations that we face differently. Now again, as I said in the audiobook tonight, we can get to know other people so well and have such clear lines of communication with them that we can diffuse potential problems before they happen. Imagine what the world would be like. And again, as I said in the audiobook tonight, we can love other people, we can love other races, we can love other nations so much that it would never even occur to them to attack us over our differences. We can build that trust and confidence, we can build that relationship so it's so strong that if there is a conflict, if there is a difference of opinion, if there is some kind of a misunderstanding, it would never occur to them to attack us because they see us differently. They don't see us as a threat. And the same with us, with other people. It's only because we see them as a threat. And when I change how I see myself, when I change who I think I am in the world, I don't see other people the same way as I used to. As I said, the less I see myself as a victim, the less I see other people as victimizers. Suddenly they become people who are just having a bad day. People who are just like me, who are frustrated, or who are they're mistaken about something, or whatever, and that's no longer seeing them as an enemy, but seeing an unhealed part of myself in them. This is not easy stuff. I get that. But I honestly don't see another way if we really want to have, survive as a species. The stakes are just getting higher and higher every year. So, so let's look at our assignment for tonight, and we're going to take a break in a minute, and then we'll come back and work on the assignment. Identify 3 ways that forgiving someone else is good for you. How is, as I mentioned earlier, how is forgiveness a benefit to you? How does it help you? How does it make your life better? All right, if you're new here, I'm going to play a song. This song is Love My Life by Robbie Williams, 5 minutes. The lyrics are going to be on screen. I can't actually play the song on YouTube because of copyright issues, but you can follow along with the lyrics, and then we'll be back in 5 minutes. So let's take a look at our assignment again for tonight. Identify 3 ways forgiving someone else is good for you. You know, how does letting other people, forgiving other people, how does that benefit you? So who wants to kick us off? Barb, you ready to go?
Well, yes, I'm ready to go, but it isn't, I feel like I'm not answering your question directly, but I do know that there was one instant, and the person, still keeps in touch with me. It was somebody I used to work with. But there was one time where, how you have those daily reads, like a daily word or a daily whatever. Okay, I have had this, book inflection, I read it every night, and it's so important to me. It comes out every 3 months, and it's actually free. And, I carry it with me. So when I'm working, I used to have it on the desk. And again, it's spiritual, Peter. It had to do with faith. And, I work for the church, and it was my boss, which is a priest. And I forget, it came up, and I mentioned it, and he picked it up and he read it, what it said for the day. And he said, it is not worth the paper it's written on. Well, now this happened probably, 3 years ago. I have never, if you want to say ever, forgiven him for saying, I was like, I have never heard such an insult. And it was like, what it is that this is what we're talking about. It really, at the time, I guess I was angry, but now, I mean, I still, keep in touch with him, but I keep him at a distance. And this is why I said I wasn't answering your question exactly. You've got to keep certain people at a distance. His mindset is not where I want to be. It's like, and there's many things that could come up that it would be the way that he thinks. And what do you do with people like that? You can forgive them, but you really can't be involved with them. Okay. Does that make sense?
No, total sense. But that's what we're going to start talking about next week. Keeping somebody at a distance, that's quite literally having a boundary.
Yes.
Now, I've been saying from day one that boundaries, without healthy boundaries, we can't do forgiveness.
Okay.
So that sounds like that's what you're doing. Now, I'm not saying, again, I want to be really clear about this. If people are abusive, if people are inappropriate, if people are doing unkind things to us, forgiving them doesn't mean we put ourselves back in harm's way with them.
No, I feel like someday I would love to, and I don't know if I even want to have the conversation, but it boggles my mind. I feel like saying, what would make you say something like that? Number one. Number two, why would you say something like that when somebody just finished telling you that it's very important to them and it means so much to them? Obviously, he didn't hear that. And, it's that kind of exchange. But no, I that's what I'm saying. I mean, at least things have changed with me. And it's like, forgiveness is not having that conversation with him because I'm not going to change him.
Right. So we're going to find out next week or in 2 weeks that we don't tell the other person that we're forgiving them, because what he thinks he did, he doesn't think that was wrong.
Right.
Now everybody does. What are the two? I 5 minutes ago I said everybody does what they do for 2 reasons: for self-preservation, survival, or to be happy. And when somebody attacks anybody or anything in that way, it's almost always because they feel threatened by it, they feel unsafe about it. There was something in that. I don't want to psychoanalyze anybody.
Right, neither do I, yeah.
But my sense is that for somebody to have a strong negative reaction like that, it must be, and to be dismissive or judgmental, that's always about our own insecurity.
Right. No, I know he has. You could see by, that and a couple of other things. It's the same thing. Any kind of friend, in a sense, can have those weak points, and you see them come out and stuff like that.
Well, a minute ago, so here's where I'm going with this. A minute ago, you just said, why would somebody say that?
Yeah, well, because of his own problems, but yeah.
Right. So this is where we can begin. See, this is the doorway. Instead of the ego takes it personally and says, how could you insult me like that? How could you say that to me? How could you do that to me? But it was never about you.
No, right, I know that. You know,
I know that. Take our power back. This is where we get our power back. Because as long as I feel insulted or I feel whatever, I'm giving my power away to that other person. And I'm going to spend years ruminating on how could he say that to me? As opposed to saying, wait a second, this is not about me. This has nothing to do with me. This is him. This is his issue. And apparently he feels very threatened by this because he wouldn't have to dismiss it. He could say, gee, it doesn't really resonate with me, but I'm glad it's helpful for you.
Of course, that's what he should have said, or anybody should.
I'm not saying he should have said that. We don't know what he should or shouldn't say. I said he could have said that.
Okay.
But in some way, he feels threatened. He feels, whatever he feels to react that way. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Until we can disconnect from the ego, which says, how could you do this to me? And I'm not, I do this every day, Barb, so I'm not making fun of you.
Well, I think I definitely disconnected from the ego, in the working on myself in this past year. And I wouldn't react that way anymore. I would be, what would be the word? I mean, I would hear what they said. I would be, I would find it very strange. It just makes no sense to me that somebody would say something like that. Okay. But I don't want to attack.
Now what we want to do is get to the point where we don't have to agree with it, but it's like, oh, I actually could understand why he's reacting that way, because how am I like that in my own life?
Okay.
Where am I dismissive of somebody else's ideas? Where am I intolerant? Where am I, not compassionate? This is, see, here's the thing. The spiritual ladder that we're climbing is we begin to see in other people all that we have not forgiven in ourselves. So it's helpful to say, God, when somebody reacts that way, it's helpful to say, number one, it's about him, it's not about me. I don't have to feel insulted, I don't have to feel diminished. I mean, you can feel however you want to feel, but I'm just saying, it's beginning to turn this around and saying, wait a second, this is not about me. This is about him. And for him to react that way, or him or her, or whoever it is in our lives, they must feel really insecure or really threatened. This is what I was trying to say a few weeks ago when we were talking about judgment, being judgmental. Being judgmental is always based in our insecurities. See, if I'm secure in who I am, I don't have to judge anybody else. I don't have to make anybody else wrong for their choices. I don't have to try to be better than them. I don't have to try to see myself as special or superior or whatever. So when I react that way, when I am judgmental, when I am dismissive, when I whatever, it's born out of my insecurities. So the next step for us, because we're doing the advanced work, that's what Dee Dee said, so this must be the advanced work.
I probably have to give him that book. I have to give him a book.
Well, hang on. So first you want to make sure that you get the book. We get the book. So it's this idea that, wow, maybe I can actually, how could somebody say that to me? Oh, I know how somebody could say that to me. They're feeling, they're being judgmental. And wow, this is what it feels like to be on the receiving end of somebody else's judgmentalness, dismissiveness, wow, I want to make sure I don't do that to other people.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Yeah.
And then it's beginning to have some understanding, which leads to compassion, and then we can go down the road, and then we can forgive. See, as long as my thing is, how could you do this to me? How could you say that to me? That's so insulting. Forgiveness is completely out of the question. And if forgiveness is good for me, then you know what? I'm never going to get past that victim mentality, which again, I said is one of the benefits of forgiveness is we have to change how we see ourselves. I cannot see myself as a victim of somebody else's whatever and still forgive. Now, for the 100th time, it doesn't mean that what he did was good. It doesn't mean that what he did was right. It doesn't make him, we're not condoning some. It sounds like he was actually kind of inappropriate. So we're not condoning any of that, but none of that matters to us. We're here to change us, not other people.
Right. And here I think I'm changing. And I said, I just heard you say something which changed my way of thinking a little bit. I thought I was right in going, okay, so now I have you at a distance but see, I'm judging. I have you at a distance because I don't really like you that much anymore. All that stuff. I'm not forgiving. I'm judging. I'm like.
Well, okay, but, all right, but again, we said distance is okay because that's a boundary.
All right.
So we don't.
Boundary is not judging.
Healthy boundaries are not about judgment. We'll find out next week. We'll start next week. But it's okay to. Look. We don't have to hang out. We don't. You don't have to. We don't ever have to put ourselves in harm's way. And there's a lot of people who are not conscious, who are abusive, who are inappropriate. I'm not saying that we ever, ever, ever have to put ourselves in harm's way to forgive somebody.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, you're sitting on your couch, he's probably at least a few miles away at best. You probably haven't seen him in a long time, and yet he still has power over you.
Well, that's what I just was saying, and I don't want, we got to even get past that, huh?
Well, remember, we give our power away. Nobody can take our power unless we give it to them.
Okay.
Now, what's power? Chapter 2, or Chapter 3. True power, the ability to consciously choose and or change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Nobody can change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Only we can. So it doesn't matter what they do, our reaction is still about us.
Okay.
So don't put yourself in harm's way. You don't have to hang out with this guy. You don't ever have to talk to him again.
I know.
But the benefit to us is when we change how we see ourselves, when we change the story about what happened, that's when we begin to let go of it, release that negative energy, which can make us sick, physically, mentally, and emotionally sick. When we begin to release that, but I can't release that as long as I'm still taking what he did personally.
Okay, so I'm trying, because that's what I'm saying. So you could still correspond with somebody like that. Like say they email you and they call you occasionally and stuff like that. And I am genuinely trying to just be a, what would be the word? Just a nice person. I'm not going to, I find myself, it's amazing, where before I couldn't have done that. Now I can genuinely or honestly just be, okay with it. Correspond with it, correspond with him and everything's fine. Whatever you say, I could say back, I don't want to hold on to it.
You can, Barb, at some point, if you value the relationship enough, at some point you can say, gee, do you remember that time I showed you that
that's what I said to you. I would love to say
I was really surprised by your reaction. Can you elaborate more?
Huh?
But it has to be from a place of genuinely wanting to heal that.
Yeah. I figured I figured that's true. Yes.
But again, you got to be really careful because he may still be really, a dick about it. So you don't want to put yourself back in harm's way with this person.
No, I know. No, it's not that important.
If you're married to somebody, then maybe you want to have a conversation like that to clear the air. But if it's somebody you don't have to see on a regular basis and it's casual, then, you may or may not want to have that conversation. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter what's going on out there. The only thing that I'm interested in is what we're doing to ourselves in here. And if we're hanging on to something like that, which we all do, I do it, we're hurting ourselves. And we can't truly forgive. it's still that story of, how could you do this to me? How could you say something like that? Don't you know how much that hurts me? That's the ego. Nobody has the power to hurt us unless we give them that power. Now, we're going to talk later in this chapter, we're going to talk about the difference between hurt and harm. There is a difference between hurt and harm that is actually a really important distinction. People can harm us, physically harm us or whatever, but it's that indignation, it's taking things personally, it's being insulted, it's being offended. How could you do that to me? That's the ego. And that is us giving our power away, and that will never, ever lead to forgiveness. It will never lead to us moving forward in our relationships with certain people. If we want to stay in relationship with them, maybe we don't. But as long as I see myself as a victim, as long as I see myself as powerless, as long as I see myself as threatened and vulnerable, then you know what? Maybe I never see that guy again, but guess what? Next week somebody else is going to come into my life and play that role. Because I have that idea about myself. Who do you think you are? How do you see yourself? If you want to know who you are, look at how you are. And you're going to, and we attract more of that into our lives. That's a law of attraction. That's spiritual, that's metaphysics 101. Whatever that vibe is that we're putting out there, that we're victims, that we're helpless, that people are unkind to us, as long as we have that going on, we're going to keep attracting that.
And that's very true. I'm more that than I am the other way. I'm not the bully. I'm not the, I never was. So yeah, so you keep on with your personality, and then that person you attract. That's amazing. Okay, I got it.
And once we start to do this consciously, remember, true power, the ability to consciously choose and or change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, when we begin to consciously create our lives by consciously thinking positive thoughts, which lead to positive feelings, which lead to positive words and actions, which lead to positive outcomes. Now you know why I'm harping on all this.
Right, I got to do more of that.
That's how we create our lives. That's how we attract what we attract into our lives.
Right. Yeah, I told you
That's why we want to reprogram. That's why we want to discover the unconscious or subconscious thoughts and beliefs about ourselves that are running our lives, and we're not even aware that that's what's running our lives.
Okay. Yep. Got it.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, because I told you I'm a little bit on neutral, but that's that's not saying much because it's still underneath. So I've got to work more on the positive affirmations, positive thoughts, positive reinforcement to myself.
Listen to that affirmation meditation that I sent you guys.
I know. I didn't get the earbuds. Nobody paid attention to me over the weekend. I was like, doesn't anybody have anything? I asked Caitlin, I asked Reggie. Nobody paid. They didn't pay attention to it.
You can order. You can get it. Yeah, you can get them from eBay or Amazon or whatever. So
I just thought they definitely had an extra pair, and nobody was. But it was a big weekend. It was a party, so it was like, okay, I will ask again.
Well, this is all, again, this is us taking responsibility for our lives. It is, for me, it is reprogramming.
Yes, it is reprogramming. Yeah.
And that's how we attract different experiences and people and all of that. So you're doing great, Barb. This is good. I mean, I want you to know this is really good, and I understand, and I can see that you're getting it as I describe it. So. Okay.
That's good. That's good to hear. I need that. See, I need positive reinforcement. And, when you do live alone, you don't always get it. Yeah.
All right. You get a woohoo.
Oh, I do? Okay.
Good job. Good work.
Okay, thanks. Good. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, Barb. Anybody else want to chime in on our topic for tonight? Identifying 3 ways forgiving someone else is good for us. Go ahead, Dee Dee.
Okay. Hi, it's Dee Dee. Okay, so the big one for me is it's the release. It's actually the release and preservation of my life force. So when I'm in I'm going to call it a chewing the cud of being pissed off about something, all of my bandwidth is being sucked up by that chewing the cud. So I get my life force back. That's the big one. And then I will add to that, like it frees up my gray matter. So forgiving and letting go of whatever the cut of the day is allows my gray matter to be free to be connected to source, where divine source, which is the inspiration of all creativity and information for me. So those two things stand on their own. I don't need another reason, but I bet you have a few to share. There was something I was going to ask you. What was it about here? You know what? I'm a little bit tired, so I'm drawing a blank. But why don't you answer that? Why don't you add to my two, and then I'll remember what it is I wanted to ask you.
All right. Got it. So I think what I heard you say, especially the first one, was what I was talking about earlier, which is when I'm ruminating over what somebody else did to me, it drains my life energy. It drains my ability to get things done that I need to get done. I mean, I'm spending all my emotional time and energy. Remember, in this lifetime, it takes energy to achieve things, to accomplish things. I mean, hell, just going to the grocery store. If I'm totally fixated on what they did to me, how unfair it was, what assholes they are, again, it's not to say that they're not assholes. They might actually be assholes. But my thinking, ruminating over that, giving that my mental time and attention is not serving me. And it drains my life energy, and it distracts me. And, I got to say, the book, this has just been working on the second edition and the audiobook. This is the most time-consuming thing, as you probably have guessed by now, the most time-consuming thing I've ever done in my life. It's taken me close to over a year now. And if I'm distracted, if I got this thing going on about what jerks they are and how they messed up my life and all of that, I can't get done what I need to get done. What were you going to say?
Thanks. Yeah. So this is just for anybody who might be listening. I don't recommend giving that book to anybody who's not asking for it. It kind of backfired on me. And, understandably so. It's like if somebody's not asking for advice, just telling somebody else what they should do is usually maybe not a good strategy. So I reserve this information for those who are seeking, who really are looking for an answer, because it is deep dive material. My experience is the average person just wants to blame somebody else. It's so much easier, and then we can go have a hot dog at the ballpark. Pass.
Well, yeah. So I can't comment on what's right for somebody else, but I agree with you 1,000%. It's like, especially with something like this, in my experience, people have to want it. Because I gave a few copies away, and most of them were never read because the people didn't ask. And this is true. I think this is true of anything in life. Unless people ask for it, they may not want it. Now, you can talk about it, and you can share your experience with them. The best thing, we talked about this last week, the best thing we can do is demonstrate this stuff in our own lives and let other people notice that, and then let them ask. Because once they ask, you got them. They're hooked. But,
I remember what I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Well, but short of that, handing somebody a book like this, you could be sending them the wrong message. It's like, I think, it could kind of be a passive-aggressive way of, hey, you need to get your shit together, so read this book.
Maybe not so passive-aggressive, maybe very direct.
So, yeah, And that's fine. And you know, I don't know that, honestly, I swear, I don't really know who this book is right for except for me and the people who show up in my life about it. And anybody else, I have no idea, because, you know, there's so many different ways for people to learn, to get information. You know, I can't claim that I know what's right for anybody at this point, except, and barely for myself. You know, that's about it. So
I think you should give yourself more credit than you do. Yeah. And I want to tell you that I am a student of a minister of 35 years in Seattle in the spiritual field, and you are an equal in this, in your delivery, in your compilation of the methodology, and your delivery is equally powerful to this person who's a doctor and studied for years and years and years. And I just I'm super excited to see what you can do with the information, who, you know, who's going to be attracted to it, and how prolific it might be. But it's definitely been really, really helpful for me, as you know. So thank you. I'll keep coming back. And I'm deep into this forgiveness. Oh, I got to tell you, after last week, I feel like I can let go of the forgiveness mission, that it's going to just, by coming here and doing the work, it's going to work me. And I can move on to a vision of, you know, something that's way more interesting, like, you know, fun and joy and delight and pleasure. And it's high time for me to have some of that. I haven't had a vacation in about 5 years. So thank you.
Thank you. That's great. I love it. And yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not trying to sell myself short. I do know from my experience, you know, I'm powerless over who reads the book, who doesn't read the book, who responds to it, who doesn't. So my only job now is to just get it out there, which I'm trying to do now at a higher level. So, and I really appreciate the compliment, you know, comparing me to this other person. Thank you so much for that. And I trust that, you know, the right people are going to be attracted, the right people are going to benefit, you know, and it will, at a certain point, it's going to take care of itself. I really honestly believe in the material, and I do believe it could benefit a lot of people. And I also believe it's not my job, you know, other than to just put it out there and let people let people find it, be attracted to it the way they will. All right, so we're going to play the song one more time. This time it's 3.5 minutes. We'll come back for our final goodbyes. All right, guys, so that's it for this week. Thank you for being here. Anybody want to say anything as we close it for the evening?
Have a good night.
Night, everybody. Night, Barb. Night, Peter.
Good night,
Night,
guys.
everybody.
All right. Thanks, guys. Remember, be bigger than you think you are today and every day. Have a great week. I want to hear all about your victories next week.